Ladies and gentlemen, here's our first two presenters, founder Sean Smith and Nancy from Mercenary.
Hello. I hope you guys didn't give me the loud. Oh, you gave me the loud microphone. Why would you do that?
I've got the quiet.
I have a piercing voice. You know this.
It sounds good. I had to be careful sitting down because they don't teach you how to sit down with swords.
That is a lost art, sitting down with swords. That is a very lost art, and we should absolutely still be teaching it in gentlemen's school.
I think so. It's very important. Thank you again, everybody. This is a friend of mine, Nancy. Nancy is with Mercenary Co. Nancy is an amazing voice actor, and I think 10 years?
15.
15.
I've been doing voice acting for 15 years. I got started doing hobbyist fun things, like a friend wanted to do a fan dub of Final Fantasy IX, and I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And voicing was always something I really wanted to get into because I grew up with things like Gargoyles and Reboot and all of those really, like Beast Wars. We're not allowed to call it Beast Wars in Canada. We call it Beasties here. But I grew up with all these things and I loved them, and I loved all of the art that went into it. You know, like when you're watching like Disney films and you actually get to see what the actors were doing behind the scenes, what they were doing for this line, or what were they doing at the microphone. And that was always something that struck me as, wow, this is a real job people do. This is a thing that you go to school for, you train for, you practice, and there's so much around the art of acting that you can't cover all of it. That's why you go to school for things like this.
I think that's really neat when you mentioned that you saw Disney and you were thinking voice. When I see Disney, I think the graphics, and I think it's really neat how our minds work, right? And I think it's fascinating that you'd be sitting there analyzing the different voices and stuff.
Well, it's really funny because sound really, it triggers my brain in different ways than I think most other people do, because I notice things about sound, and when I point it out to someone, they go, oh God, you're right. They did do that. And I'll give you one really good example. Back when mainframe entertainment was a thing, working out of Vancouver, so they did Reboot. That was like the first big, CGI show that was here, and it was Canadian, and it was fantastic. And then Beasties came out, and I listened to the music and the sound effects, and I went, oh, these are the same guys who did Reboot. And it wasn't the graphics that tipped me off, no. It was the sound design. It was the orchestrated music. It was the soundtrack. It was the acting. It was all that stuff. And it wasn't something that anybody else thought about. They just said, oh, I just assumed it was because it was also 3D and CGI. And I was like, well, yes, but did you hear it?
That's so cool. That makes sense. And we should say we had our last group meeting on Discord a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And we had everybody come in who was doing workshops and speakers to get to know everybody. And Nancy comes on and talks. And after our discussion, the group was chatting, and everyone's conversation was, what microphone is she using? It sounds so good. And it did. Your voice sounded amazing.
Also, okay, this is really funny because a lot of people often ask, they're like, oh, if I want to get into voice acting, what should I buy? Like, do I need like an expensive microphone? Do I need to get like a really expensive studio set up so that I can just get started? And it's like, no. Think about what it's like when you want to do something like, I want to learn how to play a violin. You do not go out and buy the world's most expensive violin. You do not go to Italy and buy a Stradivarius right away. You learn how to use the violin, you learn how it feels, you learn how it behaves. Then you work your way up as your skill and experience demands it. So, funny story. As it turns out, microphones are very complicated things, as I'm sure Dave can tell us. Microphones are all very complicated. They all have their own personality almost. They all have a different sound and resonance to them. The microphone I use is the microphone I choose because that's the one I sound good on.
Smart. I get you.
And it's not an expensive microphone.
But it works.
But it works.
For you.
I do professional work out of my home studio with this microphone. And it's fine. It sounds good. My voice specifically sounds really good on it. And I got lucky. I didn't have to spend $5,000 on Neumann's just for this. So it's great. I mean, I personally would love a microphone that gives me a little bit more bass so I sound a little bit less like I'm a child sometimes. But I don't need it. I get a lot of work that sounds very like high-pitched anime girls and your next door bestie, and that sounds really good on this microphone, so that's fine, and that works for me.
What, if I could ask, in Calgary, what is the voice actor world like? Is there many people doing it, or
Yeah.
are you a rare unicorn?
So in Calgary, the biggest industry of voice acting you will find is radio and commercial. Commercials are going to be a staple of work for anyone in voice acting because in the whole wide world, all of the work that is available to voice actors, 75% of it is commercial. Commercials are always everywhere. There's seasonal, they're sale-based, they're promotion-based, they're event-based. It's always going, it's always
Right.
changing. Creative work is on the other side of that spectrum, right? Creative work takes a lot more time, a lot more people, a lot more design and planning to execute. A video game takes years to make.
Right.
And voices kind of come at a specific stage of that development, but the whole product takes a while. A commercial, that takes somebody like 40 minutes to do an animation to, and then they apply your voice over top of it with some musical tracks.
Yeah.
So it's very different in terms of what work is available to you. So in Calgary, that's very much still true. Majority of the work here is commercial.
Okay.
But we're starting to move a lot more creative now. We used to only have like one animation but dubbing studio, and now we're really moving further and further into reach. Like, so the Mercenary company with me and Mike right over there, we work on a lot of stuff for European gaming companies and European studios. So Mike is an anomaly. He does not sleep. I don't know how he does it, but he doesn't sleep. So he is up when Europeans are ready to talk business.
Oh, wow.
So he just has a lot of time to sit down and have those conversations with them, see what they need, see what they want, see kind of where we fit into that. And it's been a great source of work.
It's awesome.
In Calgary, though, animation, we have like 1 or 2 studios.
Okay.
So we get some work from Vancouver, from the Ocean Group, and sometimes they come over with ADR work. And you know, a lot of the other creative work that we actually do is for the tabletop community, which is quite
Sure,
lovely.
sure.
Yeah.
And being digital, I would imagine your base is everywhere in the world. You could
Yep.
be doing work for anybody.
Absolutely. The internet makes the world so much smaller. You can work for anyone, anywhere, as long as they have some way to send you money.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Just one second. Connor.
Connor, where are you?
No sign of Connor.
No. Connor, where have you gone?
If I could have any of the fellowship members go to the kitchen and get the gift for Nancy for
Oh.
when we're finished, because I forgot to bring it. Thank you.
I get a gift?
Yeah, you do. So
Spoilers!
Spoiler! And you guys get to see behind the scenes how I'm completely unorganized.
No one saw a thing.
It's all good.
No one saw a thing.
Everybody, not everybody, I'm sure a lot of people here know about Critical Role, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Watch Critical Role.
Oh, yeah.
For those of you who haven't, Critical Role,
Hi,
meet
Connor.
Nancy's gift. I forgot it in the kitchen, her gift. Critical Role, as they'll say on their opening, is a bunch of nerdy-ass voice actors sitting around playing Dungeons & Dragons. And
Absolutely.
It's a real-time play, them sitting around. Some of the best D&D you'll see because they are trained actors.
They
Not
are.
saying they're reading from a script, but they know timing, they know pace, they know all those
They're-
amazing things.
They're very good at improvisation.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the popularity of what's happened with Critical Role is really going to open up the floodgates of people wanting to be a voice actor?
You know, it's really interesting you say that. I think DMs have always wanted that without being able to put a name to it.
Right.
DMs, when they run their games, it's their world, it's their baby, they're
Yep.
passionate about it. They made this and they want to bring it to life.
Yep.
Right? Your players are living in your world and you want it to feel real.
Yeah.
And to do that, there's a lot of immersion.
Yep.
And I think as a result, a lot of DMs actually come to me seeking things like, how do I start
Because
doing my
you do
NPCs?
training, don't you?
So we do. We started teaching. This was not something that I thought I would do, but we started teaching a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And we've had, I want to say 7 or 8 different cohorts of students come through. So we like to keep our classes quite small.
Right.
We really aim for like 6 people maximum so that every student gets a lot of time with each of us.
Perfect.
To be able to coach them and have pretty applicable like on microphone time together. And yeah, some of them definitely come to me and they're like, I want to be a better DM.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool. Let's reach into your world. Let's find some characters. Just
Yeah.
like maybe we'll just focus on
Yep.
3 that you really want to be able to build, and then you can borrow pieces from each one anytime you need them.
Yeah.
You know, not every single NPC needs to sound 100% unique from each other when you're starting out, but when you start building that repository,
Yes.
as reservoir of characters, you can make use of that whenever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a couple of quick tips. I know when I talk to other DMs, I say to them, you know, you don't have to have a voice in the sense of an accent or something like that.
Yep.
But a lot of times I say, you know, change the way you speak, slow it down, or maybe you talk a little faster when that character talks a little, you know, it's just
Yep.
silly things like that to give a little difference. Do you have any kind of quick tips for
No,
anybody?
absolutely. That's exactly what I tell people. It's like if you just want a really quick way
Yeah.
to vary things just a little bit. There's usually 5 to 8 different factors that we would go
Okay.
through a little more stringently and by a textbook in class. But think about things like cadence.
Okay.
Do you have a certain way of thinking that maybe you come off a little slow? Or maybe you're just super energetic and you just have so many things you want to say all the time and you're just really, really excited and you just have to get everything out all at once right now. That's already 2 things.
That's right.
That's already 2 different characters. Let's talk
Completely.
about age. What age is your character? Are they older? Do they have a raspy little voice? Or are they really young and they're just like really up in your face about stuff? Dad, how does this work? What is this? Is that a squirrel?
I think that's so huge because I think it's a threshold for people that they feel, especially if you watch Critical Role or
Yeah.
any, you know, role play like that. You see that
Absolutely.
level of voice that they do because they're trained.
Yep.
But you don't have to hit that bar.
No.
You really don't. And if you just put a little
Absolutely
bit
not.
into it, right?
Just a little bit of a change. You know, accents don't have to be perfect.
Right.
Not in D&D anyway, because it's a fictional world.
That's right.
You know, no one's going to really get on your nerves about if you don't do a proper Irish accent.
That's right.
But if you can borrow some things from it that you like,
Yeah.
you know, pay attention to one specific way that the Irish accent does A vowels.
Right.
Or how Scottish accents really go roundabout.
Yes.
You can borrow bits and pieces, and it doesn't have to be perfect.
I find for me, when I have a certain character in a game, I will have next to their name on paper a lead-in sentence. So depending on what the accent is, I'll read that sentence in my brain quickly before I start talking as them. And it's just a couple of key words. And you're like, a wee bairn, little Irish wee bairn, or Scottish wee bairn. And you just have that one little sentence to get it into your mind, and then you
Yep.
start talking that way.
Yep.
I'm making shit up, but I don't know if that's...
So that is something that we actually do in ADR when we're doing dubbing. So when we're dubbing for a character for anime or
Yeah.
even a character for video games, we have like touchstone sentences
Oh,
that we
right.
use. There's about 3 of them. We try to choose different emotions for
Nice.
that character, and we play them to listen to them before we
Right.
go into a recording session.
Okay.
And it makes it a lot easier to remember. Oh, right, that's who Kumi is. Kumi is the sweet next door girl. She's your bestie. She wants you to have every success, and she's never going to compete with you because
Yeah.
she's your best friend. She's your biggest fan, and that, you know, that just helps you ground yourself to a character.
Because it's such a different world for me. Again, I'm a graphic artist by
Yeah.
trade. And I'm thinking about, like, say somebody who's a comic book artist and they're drawing a certain character.
Yep.
They know that character really well.
They
when
have reference sheets
Right, and then
for
you-
every character.
So for you in your voice world,
Yeah.
I'm thinking if you have a character that you voice a lot of, how does it work in your? Is it a similar thing in your brain? Like you almost go to that person, you know that person, or how does that? Can you talk a little bit about that? I find that really interesting.
So I mentioned that people kind of build up this repository of characters that
Right.
they get really good at voicing, and that is absolutely 100% true. Like if you think about having a tickle trunk full of voices,
Right?
the really high pitched squirrely one, that's definitely one.
Yeah.
I'm your big sister and I want nothing but all the best for you. That's another one.
Okay.
I do have a rather stern lecturess teacher. She's quite proper.
Love it.
She doesn't like it when you're very loud in the halls. And you must say your pleases and thank yous.
Okay.
And so I have sort of a little collection of
Right.
people, and I see them in my head, and if they are something that I just need to take them and tweak them a little
Yeah.
bit for a character, a project, whatever it is, they're there for me. They're my little
That's
collection of characters
awesome.
that live in my head.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Can you maybe mention a couple of projects that you've worked on? That
Oh gosh. Okay. So I've done recently some Kickstarter videos for some board games that were actually created
Okay.
here in Calgary. I've worked in Cardfight Vanguard as some of my anime dubbing, also AFK Arena, just as various things. We are working right now with an indie video game studio from Saskatoon. They have a project on the go called Beyond the Oaks, and we just released the trailer for it last month at Otafest. Their big demo is going to be released, I believe, next weekend to coincide with GameCon, which is happening up in Edmonton. And so the demo will be made available on Steam. We're also going to be, sharing it around and sort of getting feedback from other streamers, other gamers,
Yeah.
friends and family, things like that. If anyone is interested in streaming a demo, please let us know, and we would love to hear your thoughts and what you think of the game so far. But it is a fully Canadian game, and you can tell.
That's sick.
Yeah, the cast is mostly Canadian as well, so it's very much not a grassroots, not quite like AärdCON, but it is
That's
definitely an indie project.
Oh, very
It's
cool.
a lot of fun.
I'm seeing actually a bit of a growth in the last couple of years of this kind of idea, more
Definitely.
independent stuff happening, which is
Yep.
fantastic. It's so great to see. And just so you guys, everybody knows, Nancy is over at her table right there,
Yep.
just on the corner. So make sure you
Yeah.
stop in and say hi
Please
today.
stop in if you have any questions or comments.
You mentioned Otafest. You've also been quite involved with that too, haven't you?
I have been. I think I've been volunteering at Otafest even longer than I've been doing any voice work.
Wow.
So, I was a wee bab when I started volunteering, and then I turned into support staff, and now I just keep doing it.
That's awesome.
Every year, and then I take a week off afterwards to recover because it's not easy being convention staff. So huge shout out to everyone who was responsible for making today happen at AärdCON.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's fun though. I mean, I was just talking to one of the gentlemen on our team in the kitchen, and I'm like kind of scrambling, looking for something, and he's like, "Just let it happen. It's in motion. You can't do anything now.
This is what it is.
It will be what it is."
And really, if you're looking for ways to build that repository of acting experience,
Right.
this kind of an overwhelming feeling, that is something that you can bottle up and store for a character, or for a scene, or
Yep.
for an interaction between your character and someone else.
Yeah.
And it's these sort of everyday life experiences that are the most valuable. Which is why I very often just tell my students, go out, go live a life, go love, go lose,
Right.
go win,
Right.
and go experience, because that's where you're going to have that well of experience to draw from when it's time for a really emotional scene,
Yeah.
or for someone, some embodiment that you're going to have to do for a character.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit how Dungeons & Dragons role-playing games and stuff kind of weaves through your world a bit?
So I am considered a bit of a babby when it comes to D&D. I've only been playing for 4 years.
Okay.
I would consider myself a babby. And I have found a comfort zone in the chaotic bard. And it's lovely because I see a lot of interesting themes. I have had 2 DMs, and each DM has given me a slightly different backstory with every intention of it being different, but all of them have ended up in the same place. I have mommy issues, I'm going to lose my father tragically, and there's some weird time travel loopiness somewhere.
Right.
And that's always how it plays out, and we don't know how this keeps happening. My DMs don't know each other, but somehow
That's funny.
that's where they weave my character, and
That
it's
is
so
awesome.
funny. But it's really interesting because sometimes so acting requires you to have very good compartmentalization. You need to be able to take your day and turn it off. You don't carry it with you into your session.
Right.
And D&D is very much like that. If you're bringing your character into a situation and you're picking up from where you were last week, it has to be where it was last week, or it's going to be a very different session than what it
Right.
was last week. And acting is an exercise in compartmentalizing. There are some very tragic, some very traumatized characters that we embody, and there's a lot of protecting of your own mental health, because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you need to be able to go home. You need to be able to be okay with yourself in this specific situation. And sometimes we've had people not have a mental break, not exactly, but they have moments where they
Yeah.
are triggered in the studio, and it's okay.
Yeah.
As a skilled director, you need to be able to take care of that, and I know DMs do that as well.
Yeah.
So DMs kind of have to be able to manage that. I know when I started this game with my DM, he was very kind and very compassionate about this. He sat us all down and was like, "Is there anything that are absolute no non-starters? Like none of this type of trauma? What level of violence are we okay with?" When my bard lost her father,
Yeah.
he sat down with me afterwards and was like, "Are you okay? I'm so sorry. I tried to re-roll and it kept failing. I'm so sorry, but the dice weren't letting me have
No.
it. Are you gonna be okay?" And I was like, "Yeah. I
Yeah.
just gotta cry this one out, I think."
Yeah.
And it's something you have to recognize about yourself, and it's something that I think is very interesting when it comes to D&D, because your DM has to be that person for you,
100%.
and the players also have to be very self-aware and aware of how you're being impacted by this. A very good friend of mine recently was like, "A lot of people don't realize they need therapy, and D&D is their therapy."
It's true.
And it's true.
Yeah, I've heard
but
that
you
so
need
much.
to have that safe space. You need to be okay with having these experiences with your friends, with your players.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true, and I think anyone who's a player or played any of the games would certainly agree. Like, I've been in campaigns that have lasted 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, literally 10 years. And you got these crazy characters you go through. You can't not have an attachment.
No.
Right? And when things happen, it can be very emotional. And we've had and it's not just your character; it's the other characters in your group. When something
Yeah.
happens to somebody in your party, you can go home and be
Yes.
bummed for days.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's and it sounds almost silly that you can get that affected by stuff, but it is a passionate game, and I think that's what's really fun about it.
No, it's 100% true. In the world of acting, you have an attachment to a character because you've been the character,
Right.
and you very much feel like you are being the character when you're saying their words, you're saying their thoughts,
Right.
you're going through that bit of method acting in the studio to be that person. Because at the end of the day, they're not just a character; they're
Yeah.
a three-dimensional person.
Yeah.
And when you treat a character that way, they become a lot deeper, a lot more real, a lot more grounded. But you also don't own that character. There have been a lot of times where, a character who's in a very popular franchise, they get recast, and you have to be okay as that person's actor
Yeah.
that, that's not your character anymore, and that's okay. But that character continues to live on through another actor.
Interesting.
And it's an interesting medley of feelings. You're proud, you're also very attached, and you're nostalgic about it. But yeah, it's an interesting time.
How about you're also at the whim to the writers? How does that work into, you've got a character you're involved in, you've been doing, and all of a sudden you get a script and it's all going a direction you didn't see?
Yep.
What's the emotional landscape for something like that?
Well, in improv, we do this thing called yes and. So there's no changing or taking back whatever's been said. It's just yes
Right.
and you go all in and you're committed. Very often our scripts are not given to us before recording, so we don't know what's coming.
Really?
Nope, we have absolutely no idea.
Really?
I have 2 recording sessions later on this month, and I have no idea who I am or what the setting is, or I'm just going to
Wow.
go into recording, and I'm going to be handed all of these details when I get
Is
there.
that common, sorry, for the industry to be that?
Yes, absolutely. Scripts go through, when you compare voice acting to movies or anything
Yeah.
with screen acting, those scripts go through lots of revisions too, but they make those scripts available to you because those actors need time to memorize their lines
Okay.
and be able to, work through that interaction scene by scene. And we don't get that luxury. We are given the script at the moment of recording.
Do any of you find that really surprising? Can we all nod? Like, I'm kind of almost a little shocked by that. Like, I would have thought you'd have even a couple of days to go
Oh,
over
no,
it.
no, not at all. Not at all. It is very rare that you have access to the writer, that you're given any sort of heads up at all. You're just
Wow.
kind of, you function as a provider of time,
Okay.
and then they slot you in for that time. You're committed for that time, and then you show up and you get everything then. I know.
Good for you. That's actually, I'm kind of blown away, I got to be honest, because I foolishly would have thought you'd get a script a couple of weeks in advance.
Nope.
You'd go through a couple,
Nope.
rehearse a little bit, practice it out.
No.
But maybe that raw is good, though, maybe.
It's very much an exercise in having good cold reading skills.
Yeah.
So you got to be really good at reading.
And I'd imagine the emotions that are
The
evoked from that are
emotions,
real
they're
because you're
organic.
going through it, right?
Yep.
At
You're
the
going
moment.
through it right when you're reading it.
Wow.
And it's organic. I have every respect for screen actors because they have so much memorization they have
Right.
to do.
'Cause they gotta-
They have a lot more prep that they do for their characters,
Yeah.
and you know, because there's a very visual aspect to it.
course.
There's a lot of, you know, planning out your movements, your body language, the specific nuances of how you want to deliver a scene.
Yeah.
I have so much respect for theater actors. Oh my God. But yeah, when you're doing voice acting purely,
Yeah.
and you're in the booth, you don't get that script until day of.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So have you had situations where you're like reading this going, oh my word, I can't believe what's happening?
If anyone's been to Outafest and you've seen my panel where we run through a live radio play, most times what my partner over there, Mike, does is he writes a script the night before and hands it to me in the panel. So not only are our attendees reading the script for the first time as they join us as cast in this panel, but I'm also trying to direct and act in this particular script without ever having read it. And then I glare at him every 30 seconds for typos and spelling and punctuation and and there are times when the punchline hits and you're just like, are you flippin' kidding me? This was the punchline? And he's like, yep, I hated geese that day. And I was just like, okay, this is happening. And you run with it, like you commit.
Wow.
There are recording sessions I've been in where the lines are, you know, they're explicit
Yep.
in a joking manner.
Okay.
And I just say them. Like, I don't think about it. There's no doubt, there's no hesitation, you just say
Go.
them. Afterwards, the cast just erupt in laughter because at the end of the session, they're just like, I can't believe you just said that. And I'm like, it's in the script. It's in front of me. I got to do it. And they're like, if it was me, I would have tripped up. I'm like, at some point, you just get over that.
You just got to go.
You just read it.
That's crazy.
And you commit. That you're full. You're all in.
Are you in a space when you're doing that? Like, are you kind of, you talk about being compartmentalized. Are you
Yeah.
kind of in a zone when you're doing that kind of reading?
There's definitely like a professionalism to that. Like you're in the zone, you're here, you're in this moment, you're having it organically, you're being very authentic with yourself
Right.
and to the character, and you're just here to commit to it.
Yeah.
And you know, and as you can imagine, any interruptions to chemistry are very
Yep.
unwelcome, right?
Yeah.
Like if you have someone who is interrupting the scene and they shouldn't be, if you have someone who is not matching the level of chemistry that you need, it gets a lot more difficult to maintain through a scene.
Right.
So there's definitely a lot of professionalism kind of expected from everyone, each of the actors to each other,
Yeah.
to their director, to the writer, you know, whoever is in that room with you in that moment in time. You're just there for them.
Is there a lot of situations where you're doing voice act work, like with two people or three people in a room, or is
Yeah,
it
yeah.
very solo?
It really depends.
Okay.
For things like dubbing, if you're dubbing anime, they need your lines to be very clean. And typically, what happens is that they schedule you to come in alone, and you're reading only your lines. If you're very lucky, there might be the previous actor's lines, and you get to hear them and react to them. But that actor had to record without you. So you're very much working in a vacuum. Sometimes during animation, if they're doing prelay, which is where they animate to the actors after the fact, so the actors all get together and they kind of theater of the mind it, and they go through the scene and then they animate all the characters afterwards. That will often be maybe 2-3 actors together acting at the same time, but they don't see each other.
Okay.
They're in their own isolated booths so that they can have perfectly isolated
Right.
recordings of their voices. So you have to go off what you hear, not who you see. So it's a very different interaction than from theater acting, where you have the other actors on stage with you and you're interacting with them in real time.
Right.
So you're very much going through this audio-only experience, and it's just
Interesting.
you're in a booth. No one can see you unless you have a booth that's very fancy and has windows. My God, who has windows in their booth?
You're in a box.
Yes, you're in a box. You are in a very padded box, which, good or bad,
And I think a lot of home studios are closets that are now boxes.
Oh,
is that right?
yeah. I miss my walk-in closet. That was a lovely, lovely setup for sound, but I have a very, very isolated booth now, and it's a different feeling. You make it feel as homey as you can.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Lots of foam padding
Lots
and
of,
that kind
lots
of stuff.
of, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Actually, Sam, you've seen it. It's always behind me in all of our Zoom calls. Yeah, it's the big black box. That's my booth. Yeah.
What's kind of your favorite things about doing this kind of work?
I think it's the people I meet.
Is it?
Because you always meet all these really interesting actors. Your directors are really lovely people, and they're incredibly skilled at what they do. Your audio engineers have incredible ears, and they just know everything to do with sound and all of the technical things that they need to tweak to make you sound perfect.
That's cool.
Chef's kiss perfect. And it's wonderful. And you become like one single piece of these creative endeavors that just get created, and the thing as a whole is beautiful when it
Yeah.
all comes together.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that whole audio side, that's a whole world.
Oh, yeah.
Like, those engineers are amazing.
Yeah. So oftentimes what happens is that voice actors actually have very different parts of their career. So very often you get the person who says, I can write a better script. I'm going to be a writer. Mike over there is a fantastic writer. He writes all of our radio play scripts, and they're all very cheeky and very punny, and they're hilarious. And I don't have that kind of a humor gland or organ in my body to write stuff like that. I'm probably more of a poetic writer. I like wordsmithing little bits here and there.
Yeah.
But, voice actors grow into a lot of different directions. So writing is one of them, directing is sometimes one of them, casting. Some people become casting agents.
Okay.
Some people become audio engineers because they do have that ear.
That ear.
And they're very technically minded. Sometimes they take a really hard left and they turn into game developers, and I'm just like, man, every respect to you. You are creating, and it is wonderful to see.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And what a boring world it would be if we were all the same. Right? Like if we all had the same talents and skills, that'd be boring. That's what
Yeah.
makes a world up where this room is filled with crazy talented people
Crazy
in all
talented
different
people.
areas.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was, I was very excited this year. I was at D6 Cafe, one of our sponsors.
Yes.
Worked with
Love them.
Dragons in Dungeons. Carrie and his group over there, they put on a show.
Yes.
And they asked if I want to come in for have my table set up. I did.
Ooh.
And I don't remember her name, but it was a friend of yours.
Yes.
That came by my table, and we started talking. I was telling her about AärdCON, and she goes, "You got to meet my friend. You got it." I'm like, "Great." And I think it was 10 minutes later, I got an email from you. They were on it. And
Yeah.
that was kind of how we met, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so fortunate because we like to try and have a diverse group of people come in here with different skill sets.
Yeah.
And so when we started talking, I was just so excited to have you come here because it's just such an interesting world.
It's really interesting because voice acting truly is everyone's favorite part-time job. Everyone brings their different and authentic experiences to it.
Right.
And it makes your representation of a character different from anyone else's
Right.
representation. And so it really enables and it really encourages that authenticity.
Yeah.
It's truly a place where you are bringing yourself truly into the booth, and
That
you're
makes sense.
kind of curating pieces of yourself into this new character.
Are you able to turn that off when you play a role-playing game where it doesn't feel like you're working, if you know what I mean?
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard because my bard is its
Yeah.
own character.
Yeah.
She has her own feelings and experiences, and I have to try and remember all of that. And
Yeah.
she's quirky in ways that I'm not, and she's clever in ways that I'm not.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it actually gets harder because it's all unscripted. I'm
Yeah.
so used to having a script
Right.
and having a direction and,
Right.
and being told this is where we want this performance to go. And it's so much harder.
Freeform's a little different.
Freeform is so because there's no wrong. There's no
No.
wrong way to do this.
No.
And that's kind of the joy of D&D. There's no wrong
Yeah.
way to do anything, really.
Is there any other voice actors in your group, or is it just yourself?
In my group, it's just me.
Okay.
But I find that DMs are really popping up. DMs are they're really trying to learn, like we
That's
were
cool.
talking about before. Like DMs really popping up. They're finding
Yeah.
that their skill at being a DM makes them a very successful voice actor.
And I think you have to be so well-rounded. Like if you want to be a DM,
Yes.
best thing to do is be a player for a while first
Oh,
and kind of
totally.
figure out the world. But if you can draw on little different skill sets everywhere, it makes it so much better of a game because you're making it very broad. It's not just this only type of thing.
Yeah. I find it really difficult sometimes when we're trying to connect with a student if they've never experienced something,
Yeah.
or maybe they just don't have that kind of relationship to draw on.
Okay.
It's very difficult to cast them in a role where their character has to go through those things and describe what it's like, what they should feel in that moment. So my best piece of advice to people is people watch. Like today, when you're out and about here, watch people. See what kind of questions they ask and what kind of things they're interested in and what kind of people they are. How are they dressing? How do they stand? How do they touch things while they're here looking at all these cool things that are at AärdCON?
That's cool.
It's a skill and it's zen. Like you sit and you just watch and you start crafting your own stories around people.
Yeah.
I see someone over there and I'm like, she's a mother of two. She's really having fun. She's trying to balance the stress of having her two kidlets around. And she maybe doesn't have a great relationship with her partner. Maybe she's just had a really rough week with her kids and she's here to de-stress, but she's still got to have her kids here.
Right.
And like, I don't know this person and I'm making things up about them, but it makes her a compelling character in the storyscape of my life.
Yeah.
And you take that skill and you apply it to someone you're voice acting for, someone you're an NPC.
Yep.
That you're doing as an NPC in your campaign. Like that is something that you do, right? You pull from these people that you create in your head.
Yeah.
And they stem from people you've seen at the park, at the store,
Right.
and the mall, here at AärdCON.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you see your path in role-playing games to be a D&D or a game runner at some point, or is it kind of more player for you? Do you have any aspirations?
I like living in stories.
Right.
I'm not as good at painting the story.
Okay.
I love helping people bring their story to life.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm a much better coach for a DM.
That makes sense.
Or like a, you know how sometimes the DM plants, they have a plant in the party?
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they plant me in the party and they say, I need you to guide the party to the temple. Don't ask questions. I'm like, I got you.
Gotcha.
I got you.
Yep.
So what are we doing today? We're going to the temple. You are not a religious bard. Why do you want to go to the temple? I'm going to go sing religious songs for money.
Yep.
It works every time.
DMs out there, a huge tip, and you probably all know it, but yeah, use a plant every once in a while.
Use a plant.
Not to railroad people, but sometimes to do things.
It's funny.
It
You
is.
know, you just need to ask someone to do something to help guide the party, and it sets the stage.
Yep.
And depending on what your excuse was,
Yep.
they weave it into the story really well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, so that song you sang at the temple, you sang one of those forbidden songs, and now you've pissed off a whole lot of priests. And this is how you get excommunicated from the village. And now you're stuck. Now you're on the road.
Totally.
You and your friends, you done dunked up. Now what are you gonna do? So that's hilarious. And it's a skill of improv between the DM and the player, and you never agreed on any of this.
No.
But man, we're gonna run with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Singing at all? Is
Singing?
that in your, and as being a bard, do you sing any of your spells?
I
or
do sing. Every now and again, I pull out like standard musical theater phrases.
Yep.
And we do a weird number where I reference something that people shouldn't know in this world, but you know, everyone
Yep.
gets a good laugh in.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
I think a buddy that he'll be here later today, he's playing in a game. I've played with him literally since high school for 40 years.
Yeah.
And he's a bard right now in my
Yeah.
game. And he takes these horrible, bad, cheesy songs.
Oh, God.
Change the words a little bit.
Oh no!
And that is his bard songs. And it's fun. It just adds something to it. Everyone looks forward to when he casts a spell because it's going to be stupid and silly.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was. I think someone was falling and I cast Feather Fall on them.
Okay.
And it was like, I guess I'll try defying gravity. Trust me, I'll try defying gravity, and we'll see how this roll goes. And I rolled an 18, and I was very proud of myself.
That is sick.
Oh, it was fun.
He doesn't have your voice. I should mention that right away. That'd be amazing.
It's-
That was beautiful.
Aw, thanks.
You actually, I didn't know if I should ask or not because that's a bit personal.
You know,
but
not every voice actor can sing,
That's
and
what I was
that's
wondering.
okay.
Yeah.
You don't need to be
It's
able
a
to sing
different
to
thing,
be a
right?
voice actor. Lots of very popular voice actors, they don't sing, and that's fine.
Right.
Like they have their one karaoke song they go to karaoke night with, and that's
Don't
it.
Stop
and
Believin'.
that's, don't stop believing. Okay, I'm done.
That's
Yep,
everybody's
that's it.
song.
That's it. But you know, it's always good to expand your skill in tangentially related fields. So you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
things like dance. Go watch theater shows.
Totally.
Go appreciate the arts.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything you'll find will have some way of tying back to voice acting.
I think we're going to take a few minutes to do some questions. If everybody has some questions
Absolutely.
for Nancy, would be fantastic.
Questions? Yeah.
Anybody?
Questions?
Oh,
It's
Dave, we're even gonna have
time
another
for
mic. Look at this.
Q&As.
We had one mic last year. We're so professional this year. This is amazing.
So professional. Oh my gosh.
So please, if anybody has a question for Nancy,
You got the
regarding
cues. I can give you some
anything.
A's.
anything at all.
Indeed. You just have to be brave enough to come up here
Here we
and
go.
speak into a microphone.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Our first victim.
I just don't. If you could explain what the Mercenary Co. is a little more, I'm actually not quite sure what it is.
With which, sorry?
The Mercenary Co. Like,
Yeah.
what is the company? Like,
Oh, so that is our studio here in Calgary. We provide voice acting and audio engineering. We work with a bunch of video game studios around the world, and we do voices for them, and we also teach. So we have our own little academy where we can teach people the 101s of voice acting. We actually progress you all the way to performing a live radio play. So it's a 4-level course curriculum, and we usually teach them in 4-week sprees on Tuesday nights. If anyone is interested, please join us for lessons in voice acting and how to get right into it.
Yeah, highly recommended. I've heard amazing things about it, so that's awesome.
You gonna join us?
I probably should.
Gonna be a guest speaker in one of our classes? Yeah?
This is pure horror for me. I am the guy that's behind the scenes all the time. We're at
Yeah.
the workbench. Being out, this is crazy. So
Thanks for joining me. I appreciate your bravery.
welcome. This has been fun. We had this really fun chat, didn't we, when
Yes.
we first kind of connected? And we
Yeah,
said, why don't we do this on
exactly.
stage?
This is basically this is good stage material.
This is fun.
Yeah.
Anybody else have a
absolutely.
question?
Question.
This gentleman, yes.
Hi.
Let's say that you have almost no time on your hands. Is there still a possibility of getting like just a little pinky toe into VA work?
Okay, so VA work is very deceptively time consuming, and I will tell you why. Because when you say, oh, I've got like a 5-minute script, I'll bang through this in like 15, it'll be okay. No, you spend 3 hours on it because your mic technique was off, or you missed a word, or you had to do this, or you didn't like the way that one sounded, and actually the voice acting part of it balloons a little bit. But then you get into the audio mastering, and the audio master, you gotta clean this up, you got some puffs here, you have a little bit of noise you can hear in the background, you gotta do a retake. So time-wise, when you're a super busy adult, I think that it does deserve a little bit of, committed time and a little bit of commitment to it. And oftentimes, where that comes from is your sleep. People sacrifice their sleep when they're busy adults for voice acting. And it's not always a sacrifice that people can make, and that's totally okay. But when you do have time, I highly recommend that you sink yourself into some educational material, do some practice. Even when you're not doing voice acting, for money, there's a lot of things you can do for practice. Are you reading books to your baby girl? Are you reading signs out loud on the road? Are you reading the back of your shampoo's ingredients when you're in the shower? It's all kinds of things. If you see text, read it out loud. Use a different feeling. Try out a new voice. You can practice. There's a lot of things you can do that aren't time-consuming practice that you do while you're doing other things. But if you're talking about professional time spent behind the microphone and working on a finished product, that is kind of time-consuming. So have fun with it and spend a lot of time practicing wherever you can.
That's a
Work
great
yourself
question.
up to that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you
That's
so
a great
much.
question. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? We could probably take another question.
Yeah. Questions.
Questions.
Please,
questions.
shoot. I'm an open book. I have many answers for anyone who dare ask a question.
Dave, do you have a question?
Dave, do you have questions?
No.
No? You're like, I still kind of want to know what microphone you were using. It was an Audio-Technica 2020. And in the world of condenser microphones, it is kind of a baby. It's like a really good introductory microphone. It just so happens that it works really well with my voice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
What if you don't like the sound of your own voice? So there's a whole lot of steps to finding the voice that you want to use. But the thing that I really tell people, my students, is that your voice is authentically yours, and you're the only one who can bring that voice. So don't hate the sound of your voice just because you don't think it's personally attractive. Your voice is going to sound amazing with the work of a director, with the work of some practice and technique. There's a whole lot of things that we do to bring out the best in your voice, but your voice is still the sound of your voice, and that's what people want to hear. So remember that. Now, as for things where you're like, oh, but I have a lisp and I want to train it out, there's a lot of things we can do to help you with that. It is
Right.
practice. But again, don't hate the sound of your voice just because you don't think it sounds good. I bet you it sounds great behind a microphone on the right script for the right character.
And we're sick of our own voices because we hear it all the time, right?
I hear recordings of my voice a lot. I don't love it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's part of the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Gilbert Godfrey is a Disney voice actor.
Yes, he is.
Anyone can do it.
And if you've ever heard him read Twilight out loud, you know exactly what we're getting at.
That's
so,
true.
yeah, exactly. And there's a place for every voice. There truly is. Like there's really big surge right now for a need for authenticity.
Yeah.
And authenticity is the best thing you can bring to a character.
Awesome. Well, I think that's probably where we'll wrap it up.
Thank you
if
so
everybody
much.
could give Nancy a big round of applause. She did
Thank
such a fantastic
you.
job. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. Thank you everyone for being
welcome.
wonderful.
I'm going to
If you have any questions, please come by and say hello at the table right there. Thank you so much.
live, Dave? We still good? Yep. I just want to give this to you, Nancy. Thank you very much. We have, I'll mention some sponsors: Easy Roller Dice, Fenris, which is one of our main sponsors of the show, D6 Cafe, and PM Hobbycraft. Thank you very much. You're so great. Thank you. That's awesome. Once again, let's give it a round of applause for Nancy. Thanks, guys.